occupation. And there were still people who hadn't gotten the message that the Romans were in charge. It was the Romans who called the shot. It was the emperor who was the top dog. You can have whatever God you want, the Romans would tell people. But just know where who's holding the pointy end of the spear. You can worship whatever you want. You can have all the songs you want. Have as many gods as you can come up with. But just know that the emperor is on the throne. But there were people, just like Simeon and Anna, who held out for the hope, or with the hope, that God, the one God, would redeem Israel. This redemption happened in a way oh so familiar to the poets and the painters and Christians of every stripe. We're coming up on 2,000 years now. The story, the very idea that a Messiah would come not in the way expected, the way every other liberator before or since has come, but a liberator who was carried into the temple by his parents at the ripe old age of 8 days. And when Anna and Simeon and all who were there heard them that day, they saw God's Messiah. Not a general or a king or emperor or talented fill in the blank, but a baby. A baby who one old man held up and said, "This is what I've been waiting for." That caused an old woman to break into song and say, "This is the one. This is the one that we've been waiting for all these years." It happened. Just as it can happen to you. The same hope, the same promise that was made to these two people is made to you as well. I don't know if you got everything you wanted for Christmas. I don't know if you've already broken what it was, or you already lost it, or used it, or ate it, or whatever you did with that one thing that made Christmas this year. After this, these two people disappear from the pages. They are not heard from again. Very little tradition has been built up around them over the years. A little bit, but not. I mean, we don't have Anna's Day or Simeon cards. But what we have is their witness. We have their witness that God is faithful, and that we ourselves into the hands of God. The Romans were still there the next day. The Romans hung around for several hundred years more. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 years after this. The temple that these two people had stood in and praised God was gone, never to be rebuilt. And yet, and this is the best part, God's promise had been fulfilled. When you leave this place and you go out into the world, the stores have already switched over to Valentine. I have no doubt that by next week you'll see Mother's Day cards. But don't allow anyone to take away from you the promise. Let no one say to you, it's time for you to put away this myth that there is a God. It's time for you to put away all this hocus-pocus stuff and get on with life. Anna and Simeon got on with life. But it was a life unlike anything their contemporaries could imagine. But it was everything that they had been promised. God's promise has been fulfilled. Now what will you do with it? Amen. Let us stand together and sing as we are able. Sing ye now Christmas. Christmas star to you, the warmth of home and hearth to you, the cheer and goodwill of friends to you, the love of the Son and God's peace to you, now and always. Amen. Amen.